Hello and welcome to the next vlog in our Central Jesus series as we continue looking at the miracles that Jesus performed. The miracle we're going to be looking at and considering today is the one that can be found in John chapter 9, and it is the story of the healing of the blind man. As always, feel free to pause the video here and read that chapter for yourself, but I'm going to read the first part where Jesus actually performs the miracle. So John chapter 9 verses 1 to 12 says this. As he went along, he saw a blind man from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus. "But this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the work of who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." After saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. "Go," he said, "and wash in the pool of Siloam." This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. His neighbours and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" Some claimed that he was. Others said, "No, he only looks like him." But he himself insisted, "I am the man." "How then were your eyes opened?" they asked. He replied, "The man they call Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He then told me to go and wash. So I went and I washed, and then I could see." "Where is this man?" they asked him. "I don't know," he said. Well, this is just the start of the chapter, but the whole chapter continues with the Pharisees becoming more and more concerned about this miracle, but more about the fact that this whole event had happened on the Sabbath, on the day of rest. And instead of focusing on the amazing work of God and what had just happened. And the reflection in today's book, if you're following along, makes a really interesting point from this. And he says that when they heard of the healing, they condemned it on a technicality. We read of this in verse 16 where it says, "Some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God. Jesus, this man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath." And the book says that if we let traditions or our theological perspective get in the way of our passion for meeting God, then something is off track, which I definitely agree with. But personally, I think that the man in the miracle, central to all this, is the perfect example of what it means to focus on the passion for meeting God. At no point do we read of him questioning the actions of Jesus or refusing to do something. Instead, he obeyed, he shared, and he trusted. And I think that's what we should take away from this story. I wonder, though, how willing we are to obey. Now, some of us might be a stickler for rules and like everything done in a certain way, whilst other of us might think that rules are meant to be broken and bent a little bit. I'm definitely the latter when it comes to playing Monopoly. But I wonder how willing we would be if we were the one in the situation. If we would be willing to accept that something is going to change. If we would be willing to go, "Yeah, I'll go and wash this mud off, no questions asked. Yeah, I believe that something's going to happen because of it." We can't say exactly what was going through the mind of that man at this point, but we can categorically say that he obeyed. So again, I ask, I wonder how willing we are to obey, to follow those instructions or actions that sometimes might feel a bit bizarre, or sometimes they feel right. But I wonder how willing we are to follow them in the hope and for the passion of meeting God and being with God. The man was also ready to share. I wonder if you've ever been in one of those situations where someone's asked you a question and the answer might change depending on who is asking. And it can happen so easily, and sometimes we don't always realise we're doing it. For example, if someone in church asks you, have you had a good weekend? You might say, oh yeah, it was okay. Whereas if your best friend asks you, you might be like, well, it was okay, but then this happened. Sometimes our answers depend on who we're with, and sometimes for the better, but sometimes for the worse. Well, if you continue reading through this chapter, what you'll read is how the man is questioned again and again by the Pharisees for the legitimacy of this miracle. And he repeats again and again what happened. And at no point does he change his story or try to fit in with the crowd. Instead, he sticks to the truth in its whole because he knows that's the place he should be. Despite the pressure that has been placed on him, he shares what he knows to be the truth and he sticks with it. I wonder if we do the same. And finally, the man trusts in Jesus. I remember whilst in uni, we had this fantastic guest lecturer came in and he took this story and he discussed it with us. And he mentioned that despite the fact that the man is healed at the end, we continue to refer to him as the blind man. Well, when we get to the end of this chapter, the man who has been healed, the man who was blind, seems to be the only one who isn't blind anymore. Because he opens his eyes and he accepts who Jesus is and he trusts in him, whilst those around him maintain that spiritual blindness and that closed-mindedness. I'm sure that we've all got people in our lives who we would love to find salvation and love to find the love that God provides. But they've got their eyes closed and they're firmly shut. So I'd like to leave us all with a challenge today. And that's to pray for those people. That there is a conversation, an action, a God incident that cause them to stop and open up their eyes. Are we willing to obey? Are we willing to share? And are we willing to trust that this can happen? I leave those thoughts with you as you go through your day. Have a lovely day and we'll see you very soon.